for the Ride or Dynasty podcast. Let's go!
Welcome. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and happy New Year, riders. I hope Santa was kind and brought you all some championships and some cash. Tonight is a very special episode of the Ride or Dynasty podcast. No, Arnold isn't posing for any pictures. Punky's friend isn't caught in an old fridge. And no one, as far as I know, is so excited taking any caffeine pills tonight. However, tonight, my riders, to celebrate the new year and our 40th podcast, we have the entire Ride or Dynasty crew together to review our hits and misses for 2019. Now, back from his corner, Mr. Colorado Kool-Aid himself, Michael Kloss. How the heck are you, my friend?
JJ, I love the references, and I'm going to drop another one that probably everybody else on this podcast might not get, but like Jesse Spano, I'm so excited and actually a little bit scared.
You should be. The Devi Dirtbag is back with us this week. Ryan, what's the good word?
Well, I'm alive, and I'm ready to do this podcast.
That's good to know. All right, and now the inventor of Mahomaha Hold'em and the Charlemagne of the high ankle sprain, Nick Mirabito. Nick, was Santa good to you?
Santa was all right. He was certainly better to me than Alvin Kamara. Yes, I'm still on that, but I will leave it there. Let's do this.
I don't blame you at all. That's fine.
Oh, man. Now, last but certainly not least, our CFO, Eric Braun. Eric, how was your first day back to work?
It was a long day. It was a busy day, and I'm ready to unwind with some Dynasty talk.
And that's exactly what we aim to do here. I'm so excited, like I said, to have the whole game back. It's really that time, and I think that we should probably kick it off the way that we have in the past. We're going to hit that Devi debrief. We're going to talk about Devin Duvernay. Take it away, Ryan.
Thanks, guys. Hey, riders. I have a prospect for you today that's starting to generate some chatter in fantasy football Twitter land after his impressive showing against Utah in the Alma Bowl, and really all of 2019 in general. And that would be Devin Duvernay, the senior slot receiver for the Texas Longhorns. After starting his career at Texas quietly with just 70 receptions for 1,082 yards and 7 touchdowns combined from freshman through junior years, Duvernay broke out in a big way his senior year, coming in second in the nation with 106 receptions in 2019, which was an average of 8.15 per game. Only James Prochet had more with 111. Duvernay's 1,386 receiving yards ranked 5th in the nation and were good for an average of 106.6 yards per game. He also added 9 receiving touchdowns along with 1 more on the ground. Included in the statistical output were 7 games of over 100 receiving yards and 3 games of double-digit receptions. To put up numbers like that, Duvernay had to have several great games en route to first-team All-Big 12 honors, but it was his performance against LSU that really impressed me the most. After being held to just 1 catch in the first half of the game, Duvernay went crazy in the second half, hauling in 11 passes and making the LSU secondary packed with future first-round draft selections look silly. He finished the game with 12 receptions for 154 yards and 2 touchdowns. The key catalyst to Duvernay's sudden success can be traced back to his switch from boundary receiver to the slot before the season began. But this doesn't make his success necessarily a surprise. In fact, it's arguable this is a player Duvernay was supposed to be all along. He just needed to find the right position. As a former highly rated 4-star athlete out of high school, Duvernay was ranked as the nation's number 5 receiver in the class of 2016 according to 24/7. He was an All-American and 2-time All-State in Texas according to his player profile at TexasSports.com. Duvernay is a wicked fast receiver too. In high school, he ran the 100-meter dash in 10.27 seconds and was timed at 4.38 in the 40. He will likely run in the 4.3s at the NFL Combine this offseason. Along with being a burner, Duvernay might very well have the best hands in the nation and has no problems at all with drops. He's a natural pass catcher with exceptional concentration and awareness. I would point to a play he made against Maryland in 2018 where he made a full extension diving catch for a touchdown. This play requires immense concentration and athleticism to pull off, and that short 2-sentence description simply doesn't do it justice. You'll have to check this play out for yourself. Another play that impressed me was one he made in 2019 against Oklahoma State, where he made a fantastic catch in the back corner of the end zone and had the presence of mind to get both feet in bounds, despite only 1 foot being required in college. Part of me thinks he was showing off for pro scouts. Along with the high-end speed and catching ability, Duvernay tracks the ball well and creates separation from defenders on vertical routes. He's also a yak machine and runs angry with the ball in his hands, running through arm tackles, bouncing off shoulder tackles, and possessing some moves after the catch you'd expect to see out of a running back. This makes some sense though. At 5'11", 210 pounds, Duvernay is built like a running back. However, also similarly to the typical running back, Duvernay isn't the greatest of route runners and he needs to develop more in this area. With the right coaching, I believe he can, because the athleticism is there for him to make strides and become a more complete receiver. I don't think Duvernay will be drafted very highly, but he does have all the ingredients necessary to be a good, solid NFL receiver. He just needs the opportunity, and there is a definite team out there that will give it to him. Personally, I'd love to see him get drafted by my Detroit Lions. Danny Amendola is aging, and they could use a slot receiver to step in and replace him. Just some quick parting information on Devin Duvernay. He's a former first-team academic All-Big 12. Arizona Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray is his cousin. He has a twin brother, Donovan, who plays defensive back for the Texas Longhorns, and we'll get to see more of him against top-level talent in the upcoming 2020 Senior Bowl. All in all, this is a talented player flying way under the radar. Duvernay can be drafted in the 4th, maybe even 5th round or later of rookie drafts. I have a feeling he's going to destroy the combine, though, and his value is going to go up significantly in the coming months. In PPR formats, high-volume slot receivers are highly valued commodities, and Duvernay is a great one to take a shot on in the Dynasty League. And that's all for me in this week's Devy Debrief. Now back to the podcast.
Well, I had heard some things on Twitter, but I generally don't start looking at Devy players quite yet. Now, Eric, I know you are on top of your college players. What do you think of Devin Duvernay?
Well, JJ, I gotta admit, Ryan is way ahead of me on scouting here. Honestly, listening to these debriefs every week, though, why even bother trying to catch up? This is awesome stuff. I feel like I know Devin Duvernay after this stuff, after listening to that. It's honestly great content. I really like what you said about Duvernay's route running. I think that's going to be a big obstacle for him, but he has the talent to make up for it. The one other thing that really concerns me, and you kind of touched on this with his move to the slot, was his 1-year production. That gives me some flashbacks to Devin Thomas as a Redskins fan. But other than that, Devin Duvernay, definitely somebody to be excited about.
I hope he ends up being, a stud coming out. I think that's a pretty good deep dive there. We'll see. We'll see what happens. JJ, you have anything to say about Mr. Duvernay?
I'm just getting ready to look at all my Devy guys, so I'm excited. I'm excited for this offseason.
Well, thank you, Ryan. That was awesome. Again, as JJ said, we want to get to our quote-unquote main segment that we want to talk about. It's so super important that, you listen to Eric and JJ and Ryan doing his debriefs and me in my corner. But it's great that we can cop to some of the maybe misses that we had and also expound on those hits. So we are going to start with quarterback, go down the line from quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end, tell you about our rankings, what we talked about in past pods. Here are our hits and misses.
So starting us off at QB, Ryan, who did you do well with this year?
Well, I know that we all talked about him as being a star, and he proved it this year, so I'm going to go ahead and take credit for Dak Prescott. And all my takes for this segment are going to be from weeks 1 to 16, because week 17 doesn't matter. And Dak Prescott finished as the QB3 from 1 to 16, and that was 21.3 fantasy points per game. And the weapons are there in Dallas. I'm assuming they get a tight end, another receiver this offseason. I'm looking at the future, Dak Prescott reloading and repeating.
I do like Dak Prescott. Who did you think was your biggest mistake this year?
Well, it might be my biggest mistake in general. Baker Mayfield was not good. I was hyping him up to be an MVP candidate, a top 5 fantasy quarterback. Well, he was the number 19 quarterback. He finished behind Ryan Fitzpatrick, Derek Carr, and Grandpa Rivers.
So you're saying he did not score more than 40 touchdowns, as we were talking about?
He did not. He didn't get anywhere close to it.
Missed it by that much.
Yeah, I jokingly took the over there, but I was kind of half serious. So, fantastic, Mr. Mayfield. Hopefully the fact that, Freddie Kitchens is gone next year and they can get somebody competent that lets him do his thing. OBJ comes back, maybe with a little bit more fuller force. So, not out on Baker Mayfield completely, but definitely won't be as high in the rankings this year for me.
No.
Yeah, I'm not bailing on Baker either. I think he was in a pretty bad situation with all of the rumors coming out about the lack of communication, the not running any of the things they practiced or discussed prior to the game. I think Baker will be a rebound candidate next year without a doubt.
I'll go to my hits and misses here, at least the ones that I'm going to highlight. I remember pretty well the conversation that we had kind of about Mr. Ryan Tannehill, and I was happy to have you guys actually all agree with me there that Mariota was on the outs, and we thought Tannehill would join about halfway through the season. We actually got a couple of extra games from him as Mariota got benched. What was in week 6, and Tannehill came on. A quarterback 2, kind of exactly where we thought he was, but the QB4 from week 6 to 17. And he just honestly been setting the world on fire. He had some pretty great matchups, to end the year, especially on a playoff run. And, everyone started looking at the Titans in a different way when Tannehill's there. He gets possibly the re-sign, and he's there for even longer term. That's great for all of the other fantasy pieces. Like Derrick Henry's so much better with Tannehill around. So I'm going to plant my flag on that hit there. My miss is I kind of want to highlight what JJ said right around, I think it was early. It was around like week 4 or 5, and you said the rest of the season, like, I'm watching the Rams and I don't think that they're going to have a successful season at all. And man, you nailed it. That was an incredible take. And my huge miss was Jared Goff. I had him firmly in the top 10. I totally thought that Rams offense was going to take a second step. But I got a chance to do a little bit of evaluation on Jared Goff, and it came out really early in the season, I think like right after the Seahawks game, that he literally cannot read coverage, like at all. There was an article about the Super Bowl that we've talked about before, where Goff was having trouble after the microphone went off in his helmet during the Super Bowl, and he couldn't read that coverage. So I really wish I would have known that before I ranked and took him in 2 dynasty leagues. But that's a big miss. And if he's going to struggle like that for the rest of his career, I mean, even Sean McVay or a couple of good blue chip receivers are not going to save him. JJ, let's hear your commentary, and then I want to hear your hits and misses.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, I hope that Jared does get an opportunity to show himself, but I think the Rams could really do with a real quarterback and see what McVay can actually do with somebody who he doesn't have to tell the coverages to. Now, my hit was Kyler Murray, which was our first disparity debate. I ranked him at 6, and Michael, I believe you had him at 13. He finished at 7th overall. I expect him to be even better next year, and my first time tonight where I'm going to say I was right and Michael was wrong.
Now hold on for a second here, okay? Hold on. Like, you're acting like a 13 rank is bad, right? Like, maybe you did see this, but like you're looking at guys like Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, right? Like, at least those 4 that, I mean, maybe you didn't see it. I totally absolutely penciled them in to be a QB1. So those didn't happen. But I mean, this was a huge year of maybe I don't want to call it the year of the running quarterback, but good pull on that. But I don't know how much I'm giving it to you, just because a lot of quarterbacks had to fall out for that to happen. So bravo.
I think my personal genius is the subtlety and the nuance I can see in the positions. That was a joke. That was a joke, guys. I don't.
Well,
think
you
I'm
had
kidding
you had
this at
9
all.
quarterbacks last year that had over 300 fantasy points. I think it was 6 this year. That's it, right?
Yeah, it was a definite step back this year. I mean, now one of my misses is Josh Allen. I did not expect him to grow as much as he did as a quarterback. I think he has shown like progress as a passer. I still don't think he's a great passer. I don't know if he ever will be, but I mean, he showed up a lot more than I thought he would. Nick, speaking of people we missed on,
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. I believe I called this man an MVP candidate at the beginning of the year. If you remember, if you're a fan of the show, I am talking about, of course, one Cam Newton. Tough one indeed. I was not expecting him to get hurt and miss every game. So, what are you going to do? It was a miss. I can own it. His shoulder was fine the entire year, which was the thing that we were worried about coming in. But, what are you going to do? But I want to say, sort of hit. I'm going to call it a full-on hit on one Carson Wentz. And there's been some blasphemy on this very podcast, especially from a certain Washington Redskin fan. Carson Wentz finished quarterback 10. Now, I know that's not excellent. It's not, elite in fantasy perspectives. But, the question coming in was, can he stay healthy? He answered that question, played all 16 games. And, he's been doing it the last 5 weeks with guys like Greg Ward and Boston Scott and, those kind of guys. So I'm calling it a hit on Carson Wentz because he played all 16 games.
yeah, I'm not going to argue with you on that one. I actually think Carson Wentz had a surprisingly good year considering the trash they've been rolling out. I mean, granted, he now has the Jets' sleeper pick of Deontay Burnett catching passes from him, but man, they hit a rough patch. And even, I mean, we were all fans of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and wow, he did not show up at all this year. I'm hoping he has he's one of those year 3 wide receiver candidates. But yeah, good for Carson Wentz.
I actually want to jump in here real quick since you called me out, Nick. I'm actually going to stick up for you. We know my Carson Wentz takes. Not about that. Cam Newton, I'll stick up for you. I don't think you should be too hard on yourself for a miss on somebody who ends up on injured reserve. I know a lot of Dynasty players like to try to avoid certain players that they feel are more injury prone than others. Team injury prone is a myth.
Eric,
it's just bad luck.
I'm not up on my Nick and Eric inside joke, so I think you need to air this out right now.
Well, in that case, Carson Wentz is a terrible quarterback, and there's nothing more to be said.
That's all I wanted. This podcast can't be all rainbows and starshine, folks.
Look, there's a reason. There's a reason
the
the Eagles won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, and the second he leaves, things start going haywire.
There is a reason they won the Super Bowl.
I'm
It's
just
because they
saying.
had home field advantage and they had an MVP candidate playing for 13 weeks. So maybe don't discredit yourself for the people listening to this podcast, and don't let them know about your awful takes about Carson Wentz. Thank you.
The people know I'm right.
I could listen to you two argue all day, and luckily in my life, I have heard you two argue for entire days, which is very entertaining. But let's move on to running backs. Ryan, who was your hit this year?
Well, my biggest hit this year was Josh Jacobs. He's a player I was high on all offseason, despite, the argument against him being that he was under... Can he be a workhorse? He didn't get that much work in college. Is he going to hold up? He got injured toward the end of the year, but he's still an Offensive Rookie of the Year candidate, as I picked him to be. And he finished as the RB19, despite missing 2 games. And he finished as the number 8 leading rusher in the NFL as a rookie. So I'm going to take a win there. And a miss... I'm going to go James Conner here. And I know he missed 5 games with an injury, so this might be a little unfair. And his pace of 14.6 points per game would have placed him at running back 13 without missing any time. But I had him 5th in my redraft rankings, and he finished 31st. So I'm going to take an L there because I can't justify
Should listen to JJ.
Should have listened to JJ.
Yeah, don't draft James Conner. He's a bad man.
Yeah, Ryan, James Conner certainly did have a down year. Someone else that had a down year that I would like to kind of hit on and maybe take a whiff, I did say that he would maybe struggle a little bit, is one Le'Veon Bell. I know JJ and I talked about this during the running back pod that the Jets' offensive line maybe not the best, and with Le'Veon's type of running style, being patient, maybe you need a little bit better of an offensive line. He finished running back 16, which was much lower than his ADP. So I believe I hit there on Le'Veon Bell. What do you guys think about him kind of moving forward? Are you concerned? What are your thoughts? JJ, I want to go to you since you are the resident Jets fan.
Yeah, I'd be concerned only because I don't know what the Jets are going to do. They need an offensive coordinator. I don't believe in Gase. I'm starting to fade in my belief of Darnold, and that offensive line is crap. So unless they spend at least 2 to 3 draft picks on offensive linemen or sign a free agent stud on the line, I don't see how he can do anything.
Yeah, it's certainly tough. However, I'm certainly not perfect. There was one particular running back that still haunts my dreams. I had a certain rant about this man. It is one Derrick Henry. I called him the Derrick Henry of running backs, not in a good way. Now I would say going forward, maybe that's a compliment, I guess. I would say it probably is. It certainly wasn't at the time, so I'm sorry to one Mr. Derrick Henry. Yeah.
Bro, I was right there with you.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough. 9th highest rushing total of the decade, so he absolutely smashed it this year. So I don't think I could have been more wrong. So yeah, Michael, you were there with me, right?
Yeah, I was right there with you. I wasn't gonna draft Derrick Henry after the crap he pulled last year with that draft. The Titans coaching staff didn't know how to use him, and we're entering what? He rushed for half of his yards in like the last 3 games, so he's a playoff hero. I wasn't trusting that. So he's also one of my complete misses. Ryan has told me several times that he's an RB1 now in Dynasty, and I tend to agree with him. I mean, like, running backs were hard this year. They were hard for me. Like, I had David Johnson high to begin the season. I had Chris Carson low. I ended up bringing Carson up a little bit, but still a miss. I had Tevin Coleman as a fringe RB3. I had Kerryon Johnson as a fringe RB1, like right around that 11 to 12. So, like, again, that didn't happen. My best calls were Miles Sanders. He finished 15th. I had him at 20. Even with Jordan Howard having a good game. It was 818 rushing, 509 through the air, and 6 scores. So his future is bright. Kenyon Drake, actually, we even said he was going to be an RB2, and we ranked him as such, and he used a push to get there at the end of the year. But, I mean, it was so hard. Like, Dalvin was an RB1. Everyone in our rankings had him as a fringe RB1, RB2. But I can't get out of this segment without telling you that I pumped Damian Williams up so freaking much during the offseason as the number 1 running back for the Chiefs. And he crapped the bed so hard, and he crapped my heart so hard. So never again, Damian Williams. Never again. I chose opportunity over talent, and I was wrong.
Well, don't say never. He did look good in week 17. He is so fast. So much like Sammy Watkins, I think you might be singing the praises of Damian Williams again shortly.
Not if like the Chiefs take Swift or Etienne or Dobbins or something like that. He's done.
We'll see.
Right.
So I also missed on Derrick Henry. I also missed on Tevin Coleman. And I missed on David Johnson. Now, I am still buying David Johnson. So if anybody's in a league and they have him, sell him to me. I will buy him. His first 6 weeks, I think, 5-6 weeks, he was producing at a very high level. It was only after he came back from injury did they move away from him. So he still is capable of performing. I just think he needs a new change of scenery. But anyway, I was high on Aaron Jones. I had him ranked high. I thought he would perform well. I had no idea he would perform that well, but I did believe on him, so I would count that as a hit. And looking at my projections, last year was the first year I did those. I actually projected Devin Singletary to finish at 11.16 PPR points per game, and he finished at 11.2.
Dang.
So,
Nice.
I mean, I think maybe I got every other one wrong, but I got that one right. So, yay me.
That's pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with myself. I won't
Yay,
lie.
you.
But-
Clap for you. There you go. There's your clap.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you for the clap. Speaking of the clap, how's your crotch feeling, Michael?
Well, okay, so first of all, I don't have an STD. I do have a horrible rash in my loins right now that I told everybody off air. I guess I'm going to have to bring that into here. So, you know what? It's awful, JJ. Thank you for bringing that in.
Well, speaking of a burning feeling in our loins, Eric, tell me about your hit.
My hit this year, I'm taking credit for Hollywood Brown. I know he doesn't have the flashiest line this year. He had 46 catches, 584 yards, and 7 touchdowns, which kind of got overshadowed this year thanks to just a crazy season for rookie wide receivers. You had Terry McLaurin, you had A.J. Brown, you had tons of guys just going off as rookies. But that's actually a pretty encouraging start, especially with his first-round draft capital. And I think it's just a reminder that draft for talent, follow the draft capital, don't worry about the situation. A lot of people were worried about Hollywood Brown playing for the Ravens. They're never going to throw the ball. And look at where he is now. He's playing with one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. So situation can change quickly. On the other side of things, I did have a flop. Now, I can't, for those of you who know me a little better, I struggle to admit I'm wrong sometimes. So I'm hesitant to even say this is a flop, but I got to say N'Keal Harry here. He was my preseason 1.01 over Josh Jacobs last year. I loved him. I think he was an awesome prospect, but he had a really disappointing year. He was on IR for half of the season, but he still only finished with 12 catches, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns, which isn't the production you would want to see.
Was that per game?
No, that was a total number. It was per half season. You know, I mean, he missed 8 games.
Okay.
But yeah, that was a very disappointing season. I do think, like I said, I can't admit I'm wrong. So N'Keal Harry's still a buy. I've still got him in the top 3 of that class, but I'll take the loss on that one. He was quite a flop this year if you wanted any production immediately.
It is tough being a wide receiver on the Patriots, so don't take that one too
but
hard.
I mean, the opportunities there, which kind of makes it worse, is, you know, Antonio Brown got cut. You think this is a golden opportunity. They don't have the wide receivers, and he still really didn't do all that much.
But not many wide receivers have done well with Tom Brady. Right? I mean, I'm not making that up.
Yeah, it seems to be.
Edelman's done well. Welker's done well.
Randy Moss?
I mean, of course, Moss.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But outside of those guys.
Yeah, it seems to be very hit or miss. You know, you can either cut it or not. So maybe a little bit of concern about his fit there. But again, I still buy the talent. So
Well, you were wrong, but you know what? Maybe next year.
Yes, exactly.
Ryan, what do you think about your wide receiver predictions?
Well, one of my wide receiver predictions turned out to be really good, and that was DJ Moore. I beat the drum for him all off season. This whole podcast was big on him, and he finished as a wide receiver 1. He came in at 12. And that was even despite leaving Week 16 early with a concussion. So I had him 14th in my redraft rankings, and so that means he outperformed my expectations by a little bit, and he was 9th in the league in receiving yards. Not bad for a sophomore. And
Not bad at all.
as far as my flop, Odell Beckham Jr. And I
mean,
know
everybody was.
Ugh.
Yeah, I know everybody was pretty high on him, but this is somewhat hyperbole, but I talked about his like 2,000-yard potential, and that. But what I was really going for is that OBJ was in for a career season, and it wasn't. He finishes the.
Well, it was. It was just a career
Yes.
bad.
Yeah, it was a season in his career. Yes, he was he was the number 29. He finished 29th. Weeks 1 through 16, and I had him at number 5 in my redraft rankings. And he was also thoroughly outplayed by Jarvis Landry, who was a player that most of us were actually pretty down on.
How
yeah,
how you feeling
absolutely.
about Paris Campbell right about now, Ryan?
Well, for a guy that was injured for 2/3 of the season, I feel pretty good about him still.
I like
hope
it. Stick to your guns.
Yeah, I just hope Indy finds a quarterback.
I'm super high on him too, Ryan. I think in the game, because I believe there was one game he was really healthy. He received a lot of targets. He looked great. He was getting the ball in space, and he was making people miss. I think it's more situation than anything. I just want him to come back healthy next year.
Yeah, same here. I think the sky's the limit for that kid.
Now, Michael,
Sir?
you want to share with us some of your good ideas on wide
I
receiver?
never have any good ideas, but I'll tell you maybe who I got close to hitting. Again, Ryan and I love DJ Moore together.
Yep.
I was pretty high on Michael Gallup coming into the season. Thought he could be a wide receiver too. His finishing spot was again pretty decent because we put Dak up there. I was the highest on Jarvis Landry, but that was still 25. So Jarvis, he finishes at? He's on that borderline wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. And honestly, JJ, that kind of credit, I'm going to say, is partly to you because of your projections that we did, right? Which accounted for a lot more OBJ. I ended up buying more stock in Jarvis Landry and ended up, making the playoffs in both leagues that I had him. So
Awesome.
Thank you, sir. I think that was more of a happy accident. I'm going to have to see what he does next year. Because, I mean, if it's a hit, it's a hit. That means I grabbed him. I have him. I acquired him. And he did well, but he exceeded his expectations there. I was the highest on Cooper Kupp in our rankings, but again, that was still, there was one person that was right ahead of Cooper Kupp, and that was Brandon Cooks. So that leads me to my flops. Like Cooks was just, a missing person this year. I flopped on Brandon Cooks. I flopped completely on Devontae Parker. As a matter of fact, I can't believe how outspoken I was on people like Devontae Parker or like Brashad Perryman. So that's embarrassing. Sammy Watkins, I had him relatively high.
Shut your mouth.
But I flopped on it. So I was also a little surprised here because you guys were just talking about Julian Edelman. And when we came into the season, I'm looking at our rankings from the beginning of August, and I'm scrolling down, and I'm scrolling down, and I'm scrolling down. Like, where is Julian Edelman? Like, how did I miss this? Like, I maybe thought he was just too old or couldn't cut it, but I mean, he ended up being somewhere in the neighborhood of in the top. He definitely was number 7. So that one stings a little bit, just because I knew he was going to catch some passes, but not be as high as he was. So you're going to hit that one.
Again, sticking up for you, don't forget our rankings are 3-year windows. And I think a lot of our Julian Edelman ranking lower than he finished is that we don't know how long he's going to survive in the NFL.
Yeah.
Especially when he just lowers his head like an idiot and tries to draw defensive pass interference.
Oh, that was a flop. Flop and a half.
Oh my word, it was a flop.
Spoken like a true
I
Jets
hate that
fan.
guy so much. Burning passion.
Well, anyways, I'll just hang the hat
He's
on
my-
Michael
he-
Gallup, who was
yeah.
23rd. So we'll go with that.
That was awesome. Now, two of my hits were saying that somebody's going to be worse than we thought. Mike Williams, I was very low on him, the lowest of everybody. I had him ranked 48th. He finished 41st. And Tyreek Hill, I had him ranked 36th, and he came in 32nd. So I was much closer than anybody, and that was all because I just hate him. I was also a fan of John Brown, and he turned out to have a good season. Now, my misses were both on younger players. Calvin Ridley, I had him ranked 38th. Now, he finished 27th, but he and Cortland Sutton both were much better than I thought they would be this year. And my other miss was Christian Kirk. I know he was injured, but I had him ranked at number 10. I thought he was going to be the go-to receiver for Kyler Murray. Even removing his missed games, he was on pace for only a wide receiver 28 finish, which is right where Michael Kloss had him ranked. Michael, you were right. I was wrong. Good on you, man.
I didn't think I was gonna hear that much, but it feels good. It feels good coming from you.
Well, enough of that. Let's
My
focus
loins
on
are
Nick.
even more healed with that soothing words.
Yes, the balm of my self-accepted wrongness.
Well done. Well done. Soothing words are the best medicine. Trust me. That's how it works. So I'm going to talk about a certain person. So what you guys may not know is that next to my laptop here, for every podcast, I have a list of things I have to do, right? I have to talk about an Eagle. I've already done that. I have to talk about
Check.
how much I don't like Alvin Kamara. I have to
Check.
clap. I haven't pounded the table yet. That's coming. Don't worry. But what haven't I done? I have not hyped up a Pitt football player. Yes, you know who it is. It's one Tyler Boyd. He was a hit. I called him a wide receiver 2 coming in. I know, he was. People thought maybe wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, but he is a very talented wide receiver, especially considering who he has as his quarterback. In Week 16, he smashed it when you needed him most in your championships. So it will be interesting to see going forward with Joe Burrow, potentially, what that kind of looks like. And then a guy I missed on, a guy that has a ton of talent. I really liked the talent. AJ Brown, not AJ Green. He was also not great this year. AJ Brown, I really like the talent, but I did think that he was doomed going to Tennessee. But as we talked about earlier, Ryan Tannehill played really, really well. So what are you going to do? You win some, you lose some. But now I can check another box off this list next to me.
Nick,
Well, we want you to check all the boxes you can, man.
Perfect.
Nick, I'm really impressed by this Pitt players bit because I'm struggling to figure out who else you can talk about other than Tyler Boyd and James Conner. I mean, that's like a pretty rough program, right?
Imagine having a ton of Hall of Famers that went to your alma mater. Imagine it. Because you
Great.
can't.
Live off the 70s. Good.
I will.
Also, I'm pretty sure we can, but whatever. Moving on.
You can, yeah. That's how it works.
Anyways.
Just to remind the riders, Nick went to Pitt. Eric went to Sandusky University.
There it is.
Penn State University.
Just slow.
Nick, you going to
So
talk
they
about
have,
LaShawn McCoy?
Well, look, I didn't want to go. Look, Michael,
Marino.
it's such a long list that I didn't want to take up the viewers' time. So I know the list. I could go
Curtis
through the whole
Martin.
thing, but it's a waste of time. Eric's
JJ,
wrong.
Aaron
It's not a
Donald,
shock.
right?
Yeah, come on.
Aaron Donald, JJ?
It's not even
Yeah,
close.
yeah.
Darrell Revis?
It's a good list. So
Wait, the
Penn State
great
stinks.
Quadri
What are you gonna do?
Olison?
Quadri Olson, yes.
Yeah.
Big fan of Quadri.
All right, enough of this. Enough. You're all cut off.
Wait,
All
Nathan
right.
Peterman.
We're
Nathan
moving on to
Peterman,
tight
sorry,
end.
last one.
All right.
There you go.
You should not have.
Now we're done.
You just validated Eric right there. 2 words.
Nick, go home. You're drunk. All right. Tight ends. Ryan,
All right,
tell me about your boy.
Mark Andrews.
And thank
I
you for
said
that,
it.
by the way.
I talked about it all off season, and it happened, and I love it when that happens. He had over 850 yards, and he was second in the NFL in touchdowns with 10. I think he tied Cooper Kupp actually for second place, and he finished as a tight end 3. So that's a huge win. As far as a loss, my boy OJ really let me down.
Just admit it.
I don't know what happened to him. He finished.
He sucks.
You came in real hard, too, in that tight end ranking show.
Tight end 28.
He is bad at football.
Like, Mike Gesicki was a tight end 1 with 122 points only. It doesn't take a whole lot to be a fantasy relevant tight end. And OJ Howard couldn't manage to be a tight end 2. I still think he should be traded though. I think Tampa is wasting his talent and he needs to get out of there. And yeah, I'm sticking to that until it happens and I'm proven wrong.
It's honestly crazy to have a tight end on your team where your quarterback threw for over 5,000 yards and you can't be productive. And that quarterback
that's
is
not a good
terrible.
sign.
No. Awful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrible.
Let it go.
Terrible.
Let him go.
Eric,
Yes.
you're up.
I gotta steal Nick's bit here and pound the table for my boy Noah Fant. I don't feel like I've talked about him enough
Pound it.
on the pod this year,
too much.
but off air in our chat, I've been pounding the drum for Noah Fant all season. I actually had him as my 4th ranked rookie for pre-draft rankings last year, and he ended up with a pretty impressive rookie season, all things considered. He had 40 catches, 562 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and that 562-yard total actually places him as the 19th highest rookie tight end season of all time and 2nd highest among active players, which is pretty impressive. Rookie tight ends typically don't produce this well, but he was the tight end 15 on the season, and that's really pretty solid for a rookie tight end. He was a usable player. On the other side of things, I did have a pretty big flop. I love Jordan Reed. I'm a Redskins fan. Jordan Reed is super talented. I mentioned this earlier, but I don't typically view injured players as misses. I think it's more of a bad luck thing than some inherent characteristic to the player. But I think I have to admit that Jordan Reed might be an exception. Ignoring his various toe, chest, and shoulder injuries, he has now had 7 documented concussions, and supposedly several other undocumented ones. Now, I don't know, I'm not the expert, so I'll defer to Nick here. Is 7 concussions bad?
I would say that is bad, yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, I hate to say this, but I think despite the talent, I'm finally done with Jordan Reed.
Wow.
You should be.
I never thought I would hear that day. Yeah.
We've heard the day.
I think Jordan Reed is done. Jordan Reed is done.
Yeah. He needs to
Noah
retire
Fant,
for his sake.
I don't think Noah Fant was a hit. He finished at number 16 overall for tight ends in PPR. I mean, that's outside. He was a tight end too.
I think it's more.
Who cares?
He was a
like,
usable
only
tight
the top
end.
10 tight ends matter.
Rookie tight ends are historically
Usable.
abysmal, and he was
Less abysmal.
very good for a rookie tight end. I'm looking at a dynasty perspective. I'm playing the long game, JJ. I'm playing the long game.
Yeah,
I'm building championships
He had 2
here.
good games.
I'm building champions.
2
here.
good games. Otherwise, he was trash.
I'll take it.
2 good games.
The 2 good games count. Good games count.
You're absolutely right. You're right. Good for you. Good for you.
Noah Fant, damn it.
Start him every week and just.
I did, and I won a
two
championship.
good
I would like to
games.
point out that I won a championship in a league that you are in with Noah Fant as my tight end the entire season, including the championship game. End of discussion. Moving on.
Wow.
Well, you won. I won't lie. Okay, well, I think that I am only good at the tight end position. I believe I have a good feel for this, which is odd because it counts the least in most fantasy leagues. Yay, me. So Jack Doyle, I had picked him over Ebron. I know I had a big disparity debate with Michael about him. In the 10 games that they both played, Doyle outscored Ebron in 8 of those 10. Doyle played in 15 games, only missing 1 game this year. And now Ebron won't even be back next year in Indy, according to their GM. So, yeah, totally nailed that one.
Which is crazy, too. Because,
Another...
how many times did he have, more than 4 catches on the year? Twice?
Yeah. Yep.
Was not that great. But Ebron was that much worse.
There you go. Another one, I had a disparity debate with Ryan about Vance McDonald. Ryan had him at 16 and was talking about that he was going to receive 100 targets in that offense. I ranked him at 32. I had believed that he would receive around 66, which was the most anybody outside of who is the great tight end in Pittsburgh?
Heath Miller.
Heath Miller.
Heath
I just
Miller,
want to throw a
thank you.
stipulation on there.
Outside of him,
that figure
yeah,
I threw
okay.
out there was with Big Ben at quarterback, not with Mason Hodges or Duck Rudolph or whatever the hell they're throwing out there every week.
Just checked another box. I quacked.
That was totally intentional, and I just need to point that out that you messed it up on purpose because I'm dying.
That was pretty funny. He had 55 receptions and was much closer to 32 than 16. And when Big Ben comes back next year, Vance McDonald probably won't even be on the team.
You're
But
probably
my boy
right
Juju's
about
going to
that.
bounce back real strong.
Is he, though?
There you go. All right. Juju, we won't even get into that right now. So yeah, I mean, Nick, not to cut you off, I know you're going to go into this. I actually had Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert ranked 3 and 10, and they actually finished at, I believe, 4 and 9. So I was actually pretty happy with that for my projections as far as that went. But go ahead, take it away. I'll let you talk about your
Well, I'll tell you what.
Eagle.
I'm going to hold off a little bit. I still want to hear from Michael. I don't believe Michael has weighed in on this.
There's not much to say here, to be completely honest, other than the top 3 tight ends going into the season, which everybody got. I failed on Ebron because I won a championship with him last year. Failed on Njoku because of injury. Failed on OJ Howard, even though he's still in my top 5 or top 6. Ingram was up there. Really, there were 2 tight ends. I was the highest on all of us, or out of all of us, on Mr. Austin Hooper. I had him at 7. Nick, you had him at 8. JJ ranked him at 9, and Ryan ranked him at 10. So he was, he was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He was at 6. Everyone kind of had Hunter Henry at 6, so he was still a top 10. But other than that was just not a great pull for me. Right before the season, we had a sleeper episode where I told you about Darren Waller. I was super excited about that, and we recorded before. We recorded right around that his episode in Hard Knocks, and that got a lot of excitement. So don't know if I can officially claim it, but we talked about him a little bit.
Claim
okay,
it.
then I'll take
Claim
it.
it. Do it.
If you don't go with Waller and Hooper, I was a Hunter Henry owner, so I didn't take anybody else, and I actually listened to Ryan in 3 leagues and grabbed Andrews. So listen to Ryan and JJ when it comes to tight end, and if you took Austin Hooper because of me, congratulations. Now, Nick, let's hear yours.
Congratulations indeed. And yes, as JJ mentioned earlier, I was on the Dallas Goedert hype train, leading it naturally, pretty on brand. He ended up just 2 receptions short of 60 catches, which would have been the only time that 2 tight ends on the same team hit that benchmark outside of Gronk and Aaron Hernandez. So I think going forward, he's an excellent talent. I think you can look forward to more production from him. As far as flops, pretty much the same as all the other guys. O.J. Howard, David Njoku. The tight end position, it was a tough one. Tough one this year, indeed. Which, going in, I think people thought it was the weakest. It wasn't, the most surprising. But Michael, when would you say is the last time that you were truly surprised?
I guess, I don't know. I'm not
well
really
surprised because, Michael, we have a surprise segment to talk about. Yes, the surprises of 2019. That,
nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, is how you introduce a segment. Brought to you by Nick Maravito.
That is fantastic.
Clap it up. There it is. So I would like to
math.
Ooh, I didn't check off the math box. Oh, we'll get one. We'll get it. We'll get
you
it.
Did
in
not.
There. We'll get it there. Wait, why did?
I have a surprise.
Go ahead.
I have a surprise of this year. Tyler Higbee. WTF. Now, I did not believe that the NFC had any tight ends outside of Kittle. In fact, I said on our NFC West podcast that this was the worst tight end division ever to set foot in the NFL. None of them were worth rostering except for Kittle. I still believe that, but holy crap did Tyler Higbee show out at the end of the season.
I was surprised by DJ Chark. Like, this guy was an afterthought. I mean,
DJ Chark, DJ Chark,
I was waiting for one of you to do it.
Ryan, at that point, you just have to tell him to shut up.
Did any of us have him ranked at all? And, I mean, now he's all in the top 20 for all of us.
I had him ranked 10. Nah, definitely not. Definitely not.
But,
side note here, I feel like he got overlooked for being another deep threat receiver. I feel like deep threat receivers that aren't physically imposing. I mean, DJ Chark's pretty tall, but he's not bulky. I feel like Dynasty owners obsess over like the prototypical wide receivers and overlook the guys like Hollywood Brown and DJ Chark that aren't as, exciting in a prototypical wide receiver fashion, even though he was a second-round pick.
I mean, draft capital definitely has a huge role. I mean, think what you want about talent, but opportunity is going to ultimately dominate at the end of the day.
I think A.J. Brown, as we've kind of talked a little bit, A.J. Brown was a little bit of a surprise. Like, we ranked him just outside wide receiver 3 just because we were a little scared of, the landing spot plus Mariota. We had watched too many Titans, have some issues. And understandably, JJ, you had him ranked 21st, so I grabbed him. I grabbed him in 2 dynasty leagues with my 112 picks that I just won championships on. And
nice.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as they saw that Tannehill switch up, they got it. He got on board. Oh,
now where did AJ Brown finish in PPR leagues?
Oh, where did he? Let's see. Where did he finish? I don't have this information up right now. Do you?
I think it was in the teens.
I'll give you a hint.
Was it 21?
With 21st. Yes,
Dang.
It does.
That's a bullseye. That's a bingo.
Nailed it.
Anybody else?
I've got one.
Who are you surprised by? Yeah.
I've got a disappointment for us here. Dante Pettis had a really promising rookie season, over 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, and came back with just 11 catches for 109 yards this season with Jimmy Garoppolo back healthy. I think that caught a lot of people off guard. 49ers just completely overlooked him, moved on to Emmanuel Sanders, moved on to Deebo Samuel. I do think the one takeaway here is Kyle Shanahan had some pretty harsh things to say about Dante Pettis in the preseason, trying to light a fire under him, really moving him down the depth chart, and I think a lot of people just brush that aside, but sometimes those preseason rumors have some actual merit to them.
Well said. Well said,
enough.
Eric. Well said.
Thank you.
So now, I believe, after our surprise segment, it is time to...
Whoa, did you say Chris Godwin? Did you anybody message Chris Godwin?
No?
Is Chris Godwin really a surprise?
But I mean, like, number 2 overall, like how hyped he was. Do you think that fits the bill? I mean, like, we had him we had him as a wide receiver 1, but like 2nd overall. Does that surprise you at all?
Yeah, that was surprising.
Yeah. I'm just impressed by the Reddit and Twitter hype trains being right for once. I know they can get a little carried away, and they somehow knocked this one out of the park.
Yeah, the echo chamber was strong.
Yeah.
Very strong.
Consider me surprised. And with that,
Is this your...
we're going to move it along to everybody's favorite segment, One Klaus's Corner. Take it away, Michael.
They got their corner, I got mine.
This is my corner.
I'm standing on a corner.
I want my corners.
So I've got a little bit of a rant here, and I am a little upset with the aforementioned echo chamber. As much as I love it, you can have that love-hate relationship, right? You go through, and of course, everyone wants to talk about the best players, and I think that is totally fine. But when you're offering opinions, or you're listening to podcasts, or you're doing whatever, you're allowed to ask what you want to do, especially if you have the 101. And that's kind of where I want to center this conversation and hear what you guys have to say. Because I don't want to burn anybody, and I don't want to just go scorched earth on this. But before you start talking about the one-on-one as you own it, I actually want to know, as a fantasy owner, if you traded for it, if you acquired the one-on-one, or if you just downright stunk, okay? Because that should be a requirement before we talk about the 101. I respect the heck out of the guys that can get it out of people, but if you have an issue and you're constantly getting the 101, it's the same people talking about it versus just having that conversation, of what to do with it, because everyone's in that predicament in any dynasty league. There's still those people that had the struggle and now they're looking for help. Totally okay with that. I just want to hear from winners. I want advice from some of the people in the back end of the draft. And I feel like the quiet ones aren't always the loudest ones. So here's my idea is if you are giving advice or asking about the 101, I just think it should be a requirement to talk about how you got it and where you're at. And as we were talking about the situation beforehand, give a little bit of context. Let us know what happened in this year's situation. Let us know some of your other players. In a vacuum, trades at all are great, but if you say, hey, should I just do this pick straight up for this player, or should I trade these 3 players for these 2 picks, or vice versa? Like, what is the rest of your team? So that's Klaus's Corner. I want to hear you guys sound off just about the echo chamber of Twitter and Reddit, and being a little bit more upfront with your team, how you acquired your picks, and things like this. Eric, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I think you've got a point. I definitely agree, especially on sharing more background information when you're presenting things. It's just it's really hard in Twitter's 140 or 280 or whatever characters it is now to give the full picture, but that's important. The one thing I will say, though, is I got to stick up for our tankers out there. I mean, don't be that guy that's like not setting a full lineup, but I'm all for just a full-on rebuild. If you need to rebuild, go all the way, do it right. That first pick can be really valuable. So I gotta stick up for those guys that are just completely tearing down and are going to flip it around and be a contender in a year.
Have you ever gone through a dynasty season and you officially tanked? Have you ever done that?
Oh, I can speak for Eric. Eric has. Eric just completed one of the most improbable worst to first comebacks I have seen. He took over a team that, to say it was bad would be being too generous. It was probably the worst fantasy team I've seen. Like, for real. It was horrible.
Bad. Calvin Johnson was my best player, and he had just retired. So that's puts it in context there.
And he tanked. Granted, he traded me the first pick for Sammy Watkins.
Rough start. It was a rough start.
But, yeah. So I was a little bit surprised when I saw what you were going to be talking about, Michael, in Colossus Corner, only because I didn't know you were talking about experts.
Right.
I thought you were just talking about
civilians. Again, for civilians, everyone's going to be in that position, and you if you're reaching out with information of the 101, then that's totally fine because you want to better your team. But I've just seen a lot of consistency among quote unquote, as you're saying, experts saying that they have the 101, and it's like, well, I don't know. Do you really want to make that information public? Like, I feel like nobody looks past that point and saying, hey, this guy's got the 101. Somebody had to get it, but I just didn't expect it from you. And then willingly continue to give advice to everyone else like they're a quote-unquote expert. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. There was actually just a situation on Twitter where I guess there's a pretty famous guy who doesn't pay his league dues. And has walked out on several situations. Now, I was kind of hoping it wasn't anybody that we knew. And the person who was making those claims didn't want to name anybody because he didn't want to be that kind of person. But I thought that was really interesting.
Like, you really just never know, you know? And let me just kind of roll it back a little bit by saying, like, just because we have a fantasy podcast or just because our lives are fantasy here doesn't mean that we're going to catch a string of bad luck and, you know, get the 101. It is what you do with it. I just am more to be able to at least come forth and tell you the reasons of what happened and do my best to explain it. Even though Twitter has a character count, you can still make a thread. You can still go out of your way. I just believe, if you take anything away from this, is transparency is the best thing you can do as an expert.
As a proud owner of the 101 in the Rider Dynasty League, I agree.
And Andrew Luck just gave it to you, my friend.
Yeah, Andrew Luck screwed me. Mitch Trubisky did not take a step forward. But my wide receivers are young, and they're going to be fire in the coming years.
Who do you have?
Well, it's a Devy league, which suits you well.
Oh, I have DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, Calvin Ridley, Terry McLaurin, Jerry Jeudy, and CeeDee Lamb. And Jalen Waddle's coming up in 2021. Ooh. Not to mention I have Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And Mark Andrews. My receiving core is loaded.
Yeah, I'm just happy I took second place in that league this year. Our first place was kind of a juggernaut.
Yeah, and I'm still getting I'm still trying to get a handle on the whole IDP thing. That is a completely different animal.
Well, we'll talk about that soon. This has been a very, very special episode of the Rider Dynasty podcast.
The Rod Pod.
Unfortunately, Eric did go into an old refrigerator, and he is locked in there. Hopefully somebody rescues him. Nick did take caffeine pills and has been dancing around all night, and Zach has not been able to calm him down. And I believe Michael has touched Ryan inappropriately. So
that's how I got
all of our
the
riders. Anyway, riders, I hope you had a fantastic year. I'm looking forward to a great 2020. I'm looking forward to the five of us putting out much more in-depth content. We're going to be full bore this off season, getting you ready for your drafts. And that's it. Anybody else have anything to say?
Have a happy new year. And we've got some great stuff coming. Stay tuned.
All right, guys. So give us a follow on Twitter at Rider Dynasty. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast. Lets people know that we have some followers out there and that you exist. If you leave a review, we'll read it on air. So, for all of us, I shall simply say, boat drinks, my friend. Boat drinks.
We ride together. We die together. Bad boys for life.